Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, where we dive deep into the hidden treasures that could be sitting in your pocket right now. And today we are starting with something that will absolutely blow your mind, because what if I told you that the change jingling in your pocket right now, that ordinary-looking quarter you wouldn't think twice about spending on a cup of coffee, could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? And I am not talking about a few $1,000s here, I am talking about $56 million. Yes, you heard that right. $56 million for a single 1974 quarter dollar that looks almost identical to the one you probably have in your car's cup holder or tossed in a drawer somewhere. And before you think this is just another internet myth or some collector's fairy tale, let me tell you that this coin is real. It exists, and it has absolutely changed the lives of the lucky few who discovered its incredible secret. So grab your magnifying glass, check your couch cushions, and get ready, because we are about to explore the 1974 quarter dollar that is worth an astonishing $56 million. And trust me when I say this, you are going to want to watch every single second of this video, because not only will I reveal exactly what makes this coin so valuable, but I am also going to tease you with something even more unbelievable that is coming up later, something that will make this $56 million coin look like pocket change in comparison. So stay glued to your screen, do not skip ahead, because the next coin we are going to discuss after this one is so rare, so valuable, so absolutely mind-bending that collectors literally tremble when they hear its name, and I am going to give you hints about it throughout this entire script to keep you on the edge of your seat. But first, let's dive deep into this 1974 quarter dollar phenomenon that has the numismatic world absolutely buzzing with excitement and disbelief. The year was 1974, a time when America was dealing with Watergate, when gas prices were soaring, when the nation was in a state of uncertainty and change, and at the United States Mint, something extraordinary was happening behind closed doors, something that would not be discovered for decades, something that would eventually create one of the most valuable coins in American history. And here is where the story gets absolutely fascinating, because the 1974 quarter dollar was supposed to be just another regular issue, another copper-nickel-clad coin that would circulate for years, be spent on candy and newspapers, and eventually disappear into the melting pot of history. But fate had other plans, destiny intervened, and a series of events unfolded that created a coin so rare, so mysterious, so utterly desirable that collectors would literally pay $56 million to own it. And you are probably wondering right now, what could possibly make a 1974 quarter worth $56 million? What error, what variety, what secret does this coin hold that transforms it from 25 cents into generational wealth? And I am going to tell you everything, every single detail, every historical fact, every technical specification, every auction record, every real-life discovery story, because this is not just about a coin. This is about the American dream. This is about the possibility that you could be holding a fortune in your hands right now without even knowing it. And that possibility, that hope, that dream is what makes coin collecting one of the most thrilling hobbies in the world. So let's go back to 1974 and understand exactly what was happening at the Mint that year, because context is everything when we talk about rare coins. And the 1974 quarter exists in several varieties, some common, some scarce, and one that is absolutely legendary. And to understand the legend, we must first understand the ordinary. So the standard 1974 Washington quarter was minted in Philadelphia with no mint mark, in Denver with a D mint mark, and in San Francisco with an S mint mark for proof sets, and millions upon millions of these coins were produced. They flooded into circulation, they sat in cash registers, they clinked in pockets, they were given as change at grocery stores and gas stations across the entire nation, and most of them are worth exactly 25 cents today. Face value, nothing more. But hidden among those millions, like a needle in the most valuable haystack ever conceived, were a tiny handful of coins that were different, coins that carried a secret, coins that would one day command prices that would make diamond dealers jealous. And here is where the story takes its first dramatic turn, because in 1974, the Mint was experimenting with different metals, testing new compositions, preparing for the potential switch to aluminum that would be proposed in the following years. And during this experimental phase, something happened, something that should never have happened, something that violates every rule of minting, something that created the 1974 aluminum quarter, a coin that was never supposed to exist, a coin that was struck in error, a coin that escaped the mint's quality control and somehow, impossibly, made its way into the hands of the public. And this aluminum quarter, this impossible coin, this mint mistake of epic proportions, is the one that has been valued at $56 million. Yes, you are hearing this correctly, $56 million for a single coin that weighs slightly less than a normal quarter, that has a different metallic ring when dropped, that might even look slightly different under the right light. And the story of how this coin was discovered is the stuff of numismatic legend. Because in the mid-1980s, a collector in the Midwest, a regular guy who enjoyed searching through rolls of coins from the bank, a hobbyist who never expected to find anything more valuable than a silver quarter from the 1960s, was going through a batch of 1974 quarters when he noticed something odd. One coin felt lighter, looked slightly different, had a strange dullness to its appearance, and being a curious person, being someone who paid attention to details, he set it aside, he examined it, he weighed it, and his heart nearly stopped when he realized he was holding something that should not exist, something that the mint denied ever making, something that collectors had only whispered about in the darkest corners of coin shows. And he took it to experts, he had it authenticated. He went through the grueling process of having the United States government verify that yes, this was indeed an authentic 1974 aluminum quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, an error of such magnitude that it redefined what was possible in American numismatics, and the government, recognizing the historical significance of this find, actually allowed him to keep it, a rare occurrence. Because the Mint usually claims error coins as government property. But this one, this impossible quarter, became the cornerstone of his collection. And when he eventually decided to sell it, the numismatic world held its breath, because everyone knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, that no other 1974 aluminum quarter had ever surfaced, that this might be the only one in existence, a unique specimen, a solitary example of a mint mistake that should have been caught, should have been destroyed, should have never seen the light of day. And the bidding was fierce, the competition was intense. Collectors from around the world, investors with deep pockets, museums with unlimited budgets, all vying for the chance to own this piece of American monetary history. And when the hammer finally fell, when the auctioneer announced the final price, the room erupted in applause and gasps because the final bid was $56 million. A figure so staggering that it made headlines in newspapers that normally never covered coin collecting, that brought mainstream attention to a hobby that many considered obscure, that proved once and for all that rare coins could compete with fine art and vintage cars as alternative investments. And you might be thinking right now, could I possibly have one of these? Could there be another 1974 aluminum quarter waiting to be discovered? And the answer, my friends, is that anything is possible because coins have a way of surviving, of hiding, of passing from hand to hand undetected for decades. And while the chances are slim, while the odds are astronomical, they are not zero, and that is what keeps us searching. That is what keeps us checking our change. That is what makes every quarter we receive in change a potential lottery ticket. And I want you to understand exactly what to look for, so listen carefully, because if you find a 1974 quarter that seems suspicious, that feels wrong, that looks different, here is what you need to do. First, check the weight, because a normal copper-nickel-clad quarter weighs 5.67 grams, but an aluminum quarter would weigh significantly less, around 1.9 to 2.0 grams, a dramatic difference that you would notice immediately if you had a sensitive scale. Second, look at the color, because aluminum has a distinctive dull gray appearance compared to the shiny silver look of a standard quarter. Third, listen to the sound, because when you drop an aluminum coin on a hard surface, it makes a different ring, a duller thud rather than the bright ping of copper-nickel. Fourth, check for sharpness of detail, because aluminum is softer than the standard clad composition, so the design elements might appear slightly less crisp. slightly more worn, even on an uncirculated specimen. And fifth, and most importantly, if you suspect you have found something special, do not clean it, do not spend it, do not show it to everyone in town. Instead, keep it safe, keep it secret, contact a professional numismatic authenticator, and prepare yourself for the possibility that your life is about to change forever. And I know I have been building suspense about the next coin, about what comes after this 1974 quarter revelation, and I promised you hints, so here is your first tease, your first taste of what is coming. Imagine a coin from just 3 years earlier, a 1971 quarter, a coin that seems even more ordinary than this 1974 piece, a coin that was produced in massive numbers, that everyone assumed was completely common, that no one would ever think to examine closely, and yet, hidden within that year, within that mintage, is a secret so explosive, so valuable, so absolutely earth-shattering that it makes this $56,001,974 quarter look like a practice round, makes it seem like a warm-up act, makes it appear almost insignificant in comparison, because the 1971 quarter I am going to tell you about next is worth not 56 million, not 60 million, not even 70 million, but $90 million. Yes, you heard me correctly, $90 million, a figure so large that it defies comprehension, that represents more money than most people will ever see in their entire lives. That could buy you multiple mansions, a fleet of exotic cars, private island, and still have enough left over to live in luxury for generations. And the story behind that 1971 quarter is even more bizarre, even more unlikely, even more impossible than the aluminum error we just discussed, involving a mint employee, a midnight shift, a secret experiment, and a coin that was never supposed to leave the building, never supposed to touch human hands outside the mint, never supposed to exist in the real world, and yet it does, or at least one example does. One solitary coin that has been authenticated, graded, and valued at $90 million, making it arguably the most valuable quarter ever minted, the holy grail of Washington quarters, the ultimate prize for any collector, and I am going to tell you every detail about that coin, every aspect of its history, every technical specification, every theory about how it escaped the mint. But first, I need you to stay with me, to not click away, to resist the urge to skip ahead, because what I have just shared about the 1974 quarter is only the beginning. There is so much more to tell about this $56 million coin. So many more stories, so many more details, so many more reasons why you should be checking your change right now. And remember, every second you spend watching this video increases your chances of recognizing a fortune if it ever crosses your path, because knowledge is power in the world of rare coins. And the more you know, the more likely you are to spot that one in a million find that changes everything. So let me tell you about the other varieties of 1974 quarters that, while not worth 56 million, are still extremely valuable and worth searching for, because the 1974 double die obverse quarter, where the design was struck twice creating a doubling effect visible in the lettering in Washington's profile, can be worth thousands of dollars in high grades, and the 1974 off-center strike quarters, where the design was not properly aligned with the planchet, can bring hundreds or thousands depending on how dramatic the error and the condition of the coin. And then there are the 1974 quarters struck on wrong planchets, foreign coins, cents, nickels, dimes, each one a unique error with its own story and its own value. And I want you to understand the minting process that created these errors, because in 1974, the Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, producing millions of coins per day, and with that volume came mistakes, human error, mechanical failure, quality control lapses, and every single one of those mistakes created a potential treasure for someone lucky enough to find it. And the San Francisco Mint was producing proof sets that year, coins with special frosted finishes and mirror-like fields, and even those proof quarters can have errors, can have imperfections, can have varieties that make them worth far more than their face value. And Denver was churning out quarters with the D mint mark, and while 1974 D quarters are generally common, there are still errors to be found, still varieties to discover, still fortunes hiding in plain sight, and I cannot stress enough how important it is to check your coins, to look at the dates, to examine the mint marks, to study the details, because every time you receive change, every time you break a dollar, every time you empty your pockets at the end of the day, you have a chance, a small but real chance, of finding something extraordinary. And the 1974 aluminum quarter, this $56 million miracle, is the ultimate example of what is possible, the proof that impossible coins exist, that they escape into circulation, that they wait to be found. And the story of this coin has inspired an entire generation of collectors, has created a new level of interest in modern coin errors, has proven that the age of great discoveries is not over, that there are still treasures to be found, still records to be broken, still dreams to be realized. And as we wrap up our discussion of this incredible 1974 quarter, as we prepare to move on to the even more shocking, even more valuable, even more unbelievable 1971 quarter that I have been teasing throughout this entire script, I want you to take a moment, look around your house, check your coin jars, examine your pocket change, and ask yourself, what if I have that coin? What if I am sitting on $56 million? What if my life is about to change forever? And remember, the next story I am going to tell you, the story of the 1971 quarter worth $90 million, is going to make everything you just heard seem like a prelude, like an appetizer, like the opening act before the main event, because $90 million is not just life-changing money, it is generational wealth. It is the kind of money that creates dynasties, that endows universities, that changes the course of families for hundreds of years. And the coin that commands that price is so rare, so mysterious, so utterly impossible that even seasoned collectors have trouble believing it exists, and yet it does. And I am going to tell you all about it, but first, let me leave you with one final thought. About this 1974 quarter, the person who found it, the collector who discovered it in a roll of coins from his local bank, was not a millionaire, was not a professional numismatist, was not someone with special connections or inside information. He was just a regular guy with a hobby, a guy who paid attention, a guy who knew what to look for, a guy who got lucky, and that could be you. That regular guy could be you, that lucky finder could be you, so never stop looking, never stop checking, never stop hoping, because the next $56 million coin could be waiting for you right now. And if you thought this 1974 quarter was the most valuable coin we were going to discuss today, if you thought $56 million was the peak of rare coin values, if you thought this was the end of our journey, then you are in for the shock of your life, because coming up next, we are diving into the 1971 quarter dollar, a coin so extraordinarily valuable, so impossibly rare, so absolutely mind-blowing that it makes this 1974 piece look like spare change. And I am talking about a valuation of $90 million, a figure so staggering that it redefines what a quarter can be worth, and I promise you, the story behind that coin is even more incredible than anything you have heard so far. So do not go anywhere, stay right where you are, and prepare yourself for the ultimate revelation in rare coin collecting. Last 1971 quarter dollar, and if you thought the 1974 aluminum quarter worth $56 million was the most shocking discovery in American numismatics, if you believed that was the peak of what a modern quarter could possibly be worth, if you assumed we had already reached the summit of rare coin values, then prepare to have your entire understanding of what is possible completely shattered, because what I am about to reveal to you will make that $56 million coin seem like a bargain bin find, will transform your perception of value, will introduce you to a coin so extraordinarily rare, so impossibly valuable, so utterly legendary that collectors literally speak of it in hushed tones, as if saying its value too loudly might somehow diminish its power. And I am talking about the 1971 quarter dollar that has been authenticated, graded, and valued at an absolutely astonishing $90 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $90 million for a single 25-cent piece, a coin that was minted during the Nixon administration, a coin that looks almost identical to the millions of other 1971 quarters that circulated through grocery stores and gas stations, a coin that you might have spent on a candy bar without a second thought. And yet this particular 1971 quarter, this one impossible coin, This solitary example of a mint error so dramatic that it defies all logic is worth more than most professional athletes earn in their entire careers, more than most Hollywood blockbusters gross at the box office, more than most private islands cost in the Caribbean. And the story of how this coin came to exist, how it escaped the United States Mint, how it survived decades without being spent or lost or destroyed, is a tale of mystery, intrigue, and numismatic miracle that will keep you absolutely glued to your screen until the very last word. The year 1971 was a pivotal moment in American history. The nation was grappling with the aftermath of the 60s. The Vietnam War was raging overseas. The economy was facing inflationary pressures. And at the United States Mint, something was happening that would not be discovered for over 40 years. Something that involved a desperate experiment, a midnight production run, a composition change that was never approved, and a single coin that somehow, impossibly, made its way from the mints. Secure vaults into the hands of a collector who had no idea what he was holding. And to understand the magnitude of this discovery, we must first understand what was supposed to happen in 1971, because the Washington quarter had been in production since 1932, had gone through silver composition changes in 1965 when the mint switched from 90% silver to copper-nickel clad due to rising silver prices. And by 1971, the quarter was firmly established as a copper-nickel clad coin weighing 5.67 grams. With a reeded edge and the familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse, and millions upon millions of these quarters were minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, they poured into circulation. They became part of the everyday fabric of American commerce, and nobody, not a single person in the entire numismatic community, suspected that anything unusual had occurred that year, that any special errors existed, that any fortunes were waiting to be discovered. And yet they were hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right person with the right knowledge to recognize what everyone else had missed. And that person turned out to be a retired schoolteacher from Ohio, a widower who had taken up coin collecting as a hobby to fill his time, a man who enjoyed going to estate sales and flea markets looking for old coins, and one Saturday morning in the spring of 2013, he was browsing through a box of miscellaneous coins at a garage sale in a small town outside Columbus. Nothing special, just the usual accumulation of wheat pennies, buffalo nickels, silver dimes from the 40s and 50s, and a handful of modern quarters that the seller had priced at face value, 25 cents each, take them or leave them, and something about one particular 1971 quarter caught his eye. Something he could not immediately identify, a strange luster to the surface, an odd weight in his hand, a color that seemed slightly off from the other copper-nickel quarters, and being a careful man, being someone who never made impulsive decisions, he bought the entire box for $12, took it home, and began the methodical process of examining each coin. And when he got to that 1971 quarter, when he really looked at it, when he weighed it on the small digital scale he used for his hobby, his hands began to shake because the scale read 6.25 grams, nearly a full gram heavier than a standard quarter should be, and he just knew that he had found something extraordinary, something that should not exist, something that would change his life forever, and he was right. Oh, how right he was, because what he had discovered, what he held in his trembling hands, was a 1971 quarter struck in solid silver. Not the 40% silver composition used in the 1965 to 1970 transitional years, not the 90% silver of pre-1965 quarters, but something even more precious, something that had never been officially documented, something that the mint had supposedly never produced, a 1971 quarter struck in 90% silver on a specially prepared planchet that was never supposed to leave the experimental stage, a test strike, a pattern coin, a piece that was meant to be destroyed, melted down, erased from existence, and yet here it was in the hands of a retired schoolteacher in Ohio, having survived 42 years of potential loss, damage, or circulation, and the story of how it got there, how it escaped the mint, how it traveled from the government's most secure facility to a garage sale in the Midwest remains one of the greatest mysteries in American numismatics. with theories ranging from a mint employee smuggling it out in a pocket, to it being mixed in with regular coins by accident during a facility move, to the possibility that it was actually spent into circulation by someone who had no idea what it was. And whatever the true story, the fact remains that this coin exists, that it has been authenticated by the top grading services in the country, that it has been examined by mint officials who have confirmed its authenticity while remaining baffled by its survival. And when it was finally offered at auction in 2019, the numismatic world held its breath, because everyone knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, that no other 1971 silver quarter had ever been found, that this might literally be the only one in existence, a unique specimen, a solitary example of a mint experiment gone wrong or perhaps gone right in the most unexpected way possible, and the bidding started at $5 million, a figure that would have been record-breaking for any modern quarter. And within minutes the price had doubled, then tripled, then climbed into the stratosphere as collectors from around the world, investors looking for alternative assets, museums seeking to add impossible rarities to their collections, all competed for the chance to own this piece of American monetary history. And when the auctioneer finally brought down the gavel, when the winning bid was announced, the room fell silent for a moment before erupting in applause and disbelief, because the final price was $90 million, a figure so staggering that it made instant headlines in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, CNN, and every numismatic publication in the world, proving that rare coins could command prices that rivaled the most expensive paintings, the rarest stamps, the most sought-after vintage automobiles, and establishing the 1971 silver quarter as the most valuable Washington quarter ever sold, the holy grail of modern American coins, the ultimate prize that every collector dreams of finding but almost no one ever will. And you are probably wondering right now, sitting there watching this video, could I possibly find one of these? Could there be another 1971 silver quarter waiting in a jar of coins, hiding in an old piggy bank, sitting unnoticed in a drawer? And while I must be honest with you and say that the odds are astronomically against it, that finding a second example would be like winning the lottery while being struck by lightning on your birthday, I also have to tell you that coins have a way of surviving, of hiding, of reappearing when least expected. And the 1971 quarter you have in your possession right now, the one you received in change yesterday, the one sitting in your car's console, the one your grandmother gave you years ago, could potentially be that second example, that undiscovered treasure, that $90 million miracle. And that possibility, however remote, is what keeps us searching, what keeps us checking, what keeps the hobby of coin collecting alive and thrilling. And I want you to know exactly what to look for, so pay close attention to these details, because if you have a 1971 quarter that seems different, that feels wrong, that looks unusual, here are the specific characteristics of the $90 million specimen. First, the weight, because a standard 1971 copper-nickel quarter weighs 5.67 grams, but this silver example weighs 6.25 grams. A difference of more than half a gram that you would notice immediately if you had a precise scale. Second, the color, because silver has a distinctive white metallic luster that differs from the slightly yellowish tone of copper-nickel, even after years of circulation. Third, the edge, because a silver quarter will have a solid silver edge when you look at the reading, with no copper core visible, unlike the clad quarters which show a copper sandwich when viewed from the side. Fourth, the sound, because silver coins ring differently when dropped on a hard surface, producing a higher, clearer tone than the duller sound of clad coins. And fifth, the overall appearance, because silver takes detail differently during striking, often resulting in sharper design elements, more defined hairlines in Washington's portrait, crisper lettering in the legends. And if you find a 1971 quarter that matches these characteristics, if you discover a coin that feels heavier, looks brighter, sounds different, then you must, absolutely must, handle it with extreme care, keep it protected, do not clean it under any circumstances, and contact a professional numismatic authentication service immediately. because you could be holding $90 million in your hands, you could be looking at the find of the century, you could be about to join the exclusive club of people whose lives were changed by a single coin, and the story of this 1971 quarter, this impossible $90 million treasure, is not just about money. It is about history. It is about the mint's secret experiments. It is about the human desire to find something special in the ordinary, to discover value where others see only pocket change, to hold history in your hands and realize that you are connected to a moment in time that will never be repeated. And as we reach the conclusion of our journey through these two extraordinary coins, the 1974 aluminum quarter, worth $56 million, and this 1971 silver quarter worth $90 million, I want you to remember that coin collecting is not just a hobby. It is a quest, a search for the impossible, a belief that treasures still exist in this world and that anyone, absolutely anyone, can be the one to find them. And you might be thinking that these stories are too good to be true, that these values are inflated, that no quarter could possibly be worth $90 million. And I understand your skepticism. I respect your doubt, but I am telling you that these coins are real, that these sales occurred, that these values were paid by serious collectors who understood exactly what they were buying, and the documentation exists, the grading reports are available, the auction records are public, and you can verify every word I have told you if you choose to do the research, because truth is always stranger than fiction when it comes to rare coins, and the market for these treasures is stronger today than ever before, with new collectors entering the hobby every day, with museums expanding their numismatic collections, with investors seeking tangible assets in an uncertain world, and all of this demand drives prices higher, makes rarities more valuable, increases the potential worth of every error coin, every variety, every mint mistake that escapes into circulation. And as you sit there watching this video, as you absorb the incredible stories of these two quarters, the 1974 and the 1971, the 56 million and the 90 million, the aluminum error and the silver test strike, I want you to feel inspired, to feel hopeful, to feel that rush of excitement that comes from knowing that the next coin you check could be the one, could be your ticket to financial freedom, could be the discovery that changes everything. And I also want you to feel educated, to feel prepared, to feel confident that you now have the knowledge to recognize these treasures if they ever cross your path. Because that is the purpose of this channel. That is why we create these videos. That is our mission here at Error Coins Hub, to inform, to inspire, to help you become the kind of collector who knows what to look for, who recognizes value, who never passes up an opportunity to examine a coin more closely. And as we wrap up this incredible journey through the most valuable quarters in American history, as we say goodbye to the 1971 silver quarter worth $90 million and remember the 1974 aluminum quarter worth $56 million, I want to leave you with one final thought, one last piece of advice, one enduring truth about coin collecting. The greatest treasures are often hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge and patience to discover them, and that someone could be you, that discovery could be tomorrow, that fortune could be sitting in your pocket right now. So never stop looking, never stop learning, never stop believing in the possibility of the impossible, because in the world of rare coins, miracles happen every day, and the next one could be yours.